Welcome back. We're with Tina Olivero, a recovery advocate who lost her son to addiction and channeled that grief into remarkably effective advocacy work, which prioritizes recovery and sobriety over enablement. Now, Tina, before the break, you mentioned that the government of Newfoundland had responded quite positively to your advocacy work and that they had agreed to support sober living housing that ensures that people can escape from drugs and alcohol and other vices. Now, going beyond that, in general, what improvements would you like to see in Canada's management of the opioid crisis?
The first thing we have to do is start researching the genetic components of addiction if we're going to solve this thing. We have to have brain scans, scientific data, early diagnostics. First and foremost, it's like someone who has dementia. The first thing you have to do is diagnose them dementia. Well, addiction is a brain illness that needs to be diagnosed, and you can have an addiction, you can have an underlying mental illness, and or you can have both. And all three of those requires a different protocol of care. So we have to have diagnostics and the right type of care. Right now, we're just pushing everything at people like try this pill, try this Suboxone, try this, and there's no rhyme or reason to it. It's just a lot of pharmaceuticals and street drugs being given to people with addiction, hoping just by chance it works, and it's not working. You can see that that model is not working. So, early intervention, early diagnostics, let's find out what's actually happening with our people. What's the mental illness underneath that addiction, if there is one, and find out why their brains are hijacked.
Mhm.
Anosognosia is something that people don't understand. It's prevalent in 40% of people with bipolar and 80% of people with schizophrenia. What is anosognosia? It's the inability to see that you even have an illness. Now, that's the reason for our homeless. They can't self reflect and see, hey, I'm killing myself here. My brain is hijacked to the point where I have no cause and effect. I can't see the impact that this is having on my health and all the people around me. There's a disconnect there. That's called anosognosia. When
Mhm.
someone can't see that they're sick and they can't take a life saving action, they're a danger to themselves and others, and that's why we have the fallout of this epidemic right now.
Now, Tina, you've previously argued that access to recovery-oriented supports is a human right. Can you expand upon that argument in light of everything that you've just described?
Mhm. Well, if you don't have the mental capacity to make a decision for yourself that is life-saving, then how can you possibly be expected to thrive out there? You're just gonna deteriorate. So, having the capacity, having a structure around you that supports you in the midst of that level of illness with a brain that's completely hijacked is a human right. So, the human right to have sobriety in the midst of a brain that doesn't have capacity to make life-saving decision is critical.
Mhm. Would it be fair to say that people have a human right to sober spaces and sober housing if they're struggling with addiction, if it can be shown that being surrounded by drugs and alcohol when you're in a vulnerable state of being is actually quite dangerous?
Yeah, absolutely. It's shocking to see that the majority of facilities right now are what they call low barrier. Low barrier facilities are places where people continue to use drugs, and it perpetuates crime, stealing, rapes, suicides, and all this crazy fallout, more drug use. So we need sober living homes. At least
Mhm.
50% of every dollar should go towards sober homes.
Now, Tina, just in 30 seconds, did you find that these low barrier shelters failed your son specifically?
Absolutely. It's the reason why my son is no longer here.
Did he relapse because he was surrounded by drugs and alcohol when he was trying to get better?
Yes, he overdosed in those facilities. There was drugs available in those facilities. You could readily smoke weed on the premises in those facilities. People were smoking crack in the driveway. There's no oversight. And then even when he did take things like Suboxone, he had many other drugs with it. It was
Hmm.
just an absolute free for all and absolute.
That's obscene. I mean, people who want to get better should be in a space that supports that goal rather than being surrounded by the very substances that made them unwell in the first place. We'll get to this right after the break.